Hamatakie, welcome to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. My name is Charlie. I'm a third-year student studying economics and American Indian Studies.
Mitakie, Imakiapie Jeanette, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Hema Tanhanye. Hello, my name is Jeanette. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I moved to Bede Ota, or Minneapolis, 2 years ago to study at the University of Minnesota. Today, Charlie and I are going to take you on a truth-telling tour of the University of Minnesota's Twin Cities campuses.
Not many people know this, but the University of Minnesota was founded in 1851, before Minnesota became a state in 1858. Pay attention because there is a test. We take our history seriously at the U, and we are very proud of our history as a land-grant institution. Our first stop is Northrop Auditorium, named after University President Cyrus Northrop. Northrop not only honors President Northrop, but also the founding Board of Regents members Henry Moore Rice, Isaac Atwater, Joseph W. Ferber, William R. Marshall, Bradley B. Meeker, Socrates Nelson, Henry Hastings Sibley, Charles Kilgore Smith, Franklin Steele, Nathan C.D. Taylor, Abram J. Voorhees, and Alexander Ramsey. Some history buffs might recognize a few of those names: Henry Moore Rice, Henry Hastings Sibley, and Alexander Ramsey. Pop quiz. When was the University of Minnesota founded? That's right, 1851. Henry Moore Rice helped negotiate the Traverse des Sioux Treaty, which was signed that same year. This means that the University of Minnesota is built on Dakota land. Pop quiz. What year was the so-called Dakota Uprising? 1862. Henry Hastings Sibley not only fought against the Dakota in that war, but after the war, Sibley approved the death sentences of over 300 Dakota men, which led to the largest mass execution in United States history. Sibley then went on to serve on the Board of Regents again in 1868. Alexander Ramsey, as governor of Minnesota and Board of Regents member for the University of Minnesota in 1862, called for the extermination of Dakota people. This means that the University of Minnesota has a close history with not only the dispossession, but the genocide of Dakota people. Our next stop is Morrill Hall. This building houses the President's office and was named after Justin Smith Morrill, creator of the Morrill Act of 1862. The act granted public land to universities. In the case of the University of Minnesota, this land came from the Traverse des Sioux Treaty in 1851. The act became effective only a month before the Dakota War. Something to consider is that since 1851, the treaty conditions for the U.S. had not been met and payments for the land were grossly mismanaged. Essentially, the government was giving away land that had not been paid for, or stolen. After the Dakota War, the U.S. abrogated all treaties with the Dakota, meaning that all conditions of both parties were returned prior to the making of the treaty. Meaning the ceded land from the Traverse des Sioux Treaty goes back to the Dakota. As it stands now, the University of Minnesota is occupying unceded Dakota lands.
Our next stop is on the St. Paul campus. Kofi Hall houses the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences. It is through this college that Dr. Ron Phillips and Dr. Jennifer Kimball lead research about Mahnomen, or as it was later named in English, wild rice. Phillips and Kimball are leading genetic research on Mahnomen. This research is being conducted from the North Central Research and Outreach Center. On their website, they state that the purpose of this research is to genetically modify Mahnomen to grow more efficiently, be more disease-resistant, yield more, and to store better once harvested. However, this research is not happening in a bubble. It is happening in a highly capitalistic society that regularly breaks legal treaties that it holds with indigenous nations. GMO stands for genetically modified organism. A GMO is an organism that has in some way been modified by a human. Natural selection often comes up in conversations about genetic modification because they are both processes through which organisms change. Natural selection is a process by which organisms evolve because they are more well adapted for survival. For plants, this translates into things like having flowers that attract more pollinators or having fruit that is more appealing to animals. By having attributes that insects, animals, or humans like, plants are able to better breed and grow. In this way, humans and animals help plants change by selecting what we like best, and slowly over time, we lead plants to grow in the ways that we like them. Genetic modification is happening in labs and is happening at much faster rates and in more dramatic ways. We can now take traits from one species and put it into another species. For example, we can take traits from soil bacteria that kills insects and breed it into a plant to give that plant a bacterial pesticide that will kill insects that eat the leaves of the plant. While this science is interesting and could have many positive benefits, it's also patentable, which is a large distinction between natural selection and genetic modification. The University of Minnesota wants to patent their genetically modified monomen. This might seem like a fair trade-off. If the University of Minnesota does all this work, why shouldn't they own this type of genetically modified monomen? Well, here's the thing. Monomen, like all plants, is a part of nature. Monomen has to pollinate in order to produce food. Pollination happens out in the open. We can thank wind, birds, butterflies, bees, and other creatures for all of our pollination and all of the produce we eat. Pollination cannot be controlled, and so genetically modified and patented monomen would spread, literally wherever the wind blows. That would mean that whatever field that pollen landed on would then become the property of the University of Minnesota, and any community that relied on that monomen would legally no longer have any rights to that food, even if it grows on private property. This might sound far-fetched, but unfortunately it's already happening all over the United States. A company called Monsanto is well known for patenting genetically modified organisms and taking farmers into court for growing crops that were pollinated with their genetically modified plants. Even in cases where farmers had evidence that they were not intentionally growing the genetically modified plants, Monsanto won, because the plants had become modified through pollination. Countless cases against farmers have proven that patenting genetically modified plants leads to devastation to all of those growing non-modified organisms. If the University of Minnesota patents their genetically modified monomen, they would be taking all of the monomen from this region from Native people. The University of Minnesota's impact on Native folks is abroad as well as local. Tate Lab houses the School of Physics and Astrology. This is the school through which the university joined ARA, the Association of Universities for Research in Astronomy. Through ARA, the University of Minnesota has partnered with the developers who are trying to build the 30-meter telescope. The build is intended to take place on Hawaii's Big Island, on Native Hawaiian sacred mountain, Mauna Kea. The build of this large telescope would mean the destruction of the sacred site, the land around it, and the fresh water that comes from this area. Development of this land, like development of any place, would mean restricted access for Native people, who not only engage in religious practice in this area, but also rely on this mountain for resources and act as stewards of the land.
As a land-grant institution, we have an obligation to know where this land comes from. In our case, the land was fraudulently acquired, and we should take steps to remedy this history.
The first step towards a remedy is your own education. We are calling on you to do the work to educate yourself further on this topic. There are many resources easily found online and on campus. In your time here as a student, faculty, or staff, it is your responsibility to guide the University of Minnesota towards reparations for the legal and social crimes it has committed and is currently committing against Native people. Look for and uplift Native leaders, support Native events and businesses, and listen to Native-led conversations. Visit the Circle of Indigenous Nations online or in Appleby Hall to learn more about Dakota and Ojibwe language classes, the Dakota Sacred Sites tours, and other events. Sign up for the American Indian Student Cultural Center's mailing list or visit them on the second floor of Kaufman Memorial Union to learn about the events they offer year-round. Visit the Department of American Indian Studies' website or visit them in person at Scott Hall to learn more about their classes, degree programs, learning abroad programs, student clubs, and more. In its own words, the University of Minnesota continues to broaden its commitment to equity and diversity and is a national leader around these issues. Understanding that its land-grant mission is, at its core, a call to serve all the people of the state of Minnesota. It's okay to be proud of the University of Minnesota and to be proud to be a member of this community. This university is doing a lot of good and brilliant things. However, we need to learn that things aren't black and white. The University of Minnesota is doing a lot of bad things too, and it is our job as members of this community to lead our university in a direction we can be proud of. Being proud of a place means owning up to our mistakes, righting wrongs, and being aware of our history, good and bad. It means uplifting projects that are bettering our local and global community and divesting from projects that are causing harm in any community, not just the ones we claim as our own. We have responsibility to the Native people whose land we are in fact illegally inhabiting, and we have a responsibility to ourselves to do better. Charlie and I would like to thank you for joining us on this tour. We hope you will take time to think about this truth-telling tour and tell your friends and family what you learned today. We hope your learning won't be limited to your classrooms during your time here, and that you will consider our call to action, to learn more about the ways you interact with and impact Native people, and to start asking yourself what steps you will take next.